Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Katelyn and I like to film eyeshadow palette, ranking, and review videos, as well as the occasional other content sprinkled in. So if you like indie makeup, if you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like me, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post videos sometimes. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And I have a slightly different filming setup. I'm trying new things, you know, new year, let's test out some new stuff. So if anything sounds weird, looks weird, let me know in the comments, and I can play around. I feel like there's a shadow happening here because I have a smaller light. I had this like big softbox light, and so I switched to like a smaller light, but I think I need to, I don't know if I need to pull it closer or if I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to ranking every eyeshadow palette that I used in November and December. I think I mentioned this in my 2024 like overall ranking, but I'm doing new categories. I think in my 2024 overall I did 5 categories. We're doing 4 categories. And I don't have a meh category anymore because I have decluttered anything I feel meh about. It's not in my collection. So my new categories are going to be like, really like, love, and holy grail favorites. Now, you might be like, Katelyn, you can't like everything. And I currently do like everything in my collection. That's why it's still in my collection. Otherwise, I would have decluttered it. As I try new palettes, if I really hate them, I will mention them just like separate from the like category, but that's where we're at right now. So starting us off, let's talk about the palettes that I used in November and December that I liked. As always, these rankings are from least liked to most liked. That's why we go liked, really liked, love, holy grail favorites. Anyways, but I keep it within that order in each category as well. This palette, I am ranking it based off of what I used. So this is the first palette we have is the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. I have, since I used this, updated the shades, pulled in some of my Izamaya industrial shades into here. I have not used this since I've made these edits. So this is ranked off of the like original color story basically. And I like this palette. I think it's fun. I think the color, like I like the formulas. I like, you know, using it. When I want a cool smoky black look, which is what I use this for, I think it's nice. But that's all you can do with it. So I just don't like it as much as I like other palettes that I used. Now I've messed around with it. I got to try it out with this new look to it. I feel like it's like almost like an edgy version, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm too cool to be only cool tone gray, you know? I'm a little funky, I'm a little different, so I'm ready for that. Next up, we have the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. This is the inside of the palette. I like this palette. I like it. I do. I like the special shades in here, but if you're not using one of the special shades, it's kind of a really boring palette. And this shade is definitely the darkest shade. Like it's darker, I feel like on me at least, than this. And I don't love when the darkest shade in a palette is a shimmer and not a matte. So this one's just not my favorite. So I like it, it's just not my favorite. Next up, we have the Narimi Exotic Sheep palette. This is the inside of the palette. I really like the matte color story and I really like how pigmented these mattes are. These two shimmers are so flaky and so chunky that they border on like really hard to use. They are very pretty once you get them on the eye, but it's just, I can't pick it up with a brush. You have to use a finger. And I just don't feel like I am in a place where I want to put that much effort into my eyeshadow. Next up, we have the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 6. I feel like I've talked about this palette so much. I love the packaging. I love the concept of the packaging. I think it is innovative. I think it is smart. I think it is brilliant. I think it is all of the nice, wonderful things I could say. My issue is that when I go to use this palette, I never love the look. I'm like, oh, that's really pretty. You know, it looks nice, you know, but I just don't love it as much as I would like to love it for the price point that this palette was. So I don't know. I think I got to play around with it more. And I've said that for months since I've purchased it. I'm like, I think I just need to play around with it more and maybe I'll like it more. I've continued to play around with it, and we really haven't hit that. But I want to love this because I think the packaging is ingenious. I hope she does similar packaging in 2025, and I will be curious to see. Will I continue to buy these? Yes. At least one more, because Lightwork Volume 4 was one of the best palettes I have ever tried. And while 5 and 6 didn't hit for me the same as 4 did, I'm hopeful. I'm chasing that experience again. Next up, we have the Natasha Denona Rocha palette. This is the inside. It's a monochromatic purple palette. It's nice. I should say it's monochromatic, but it does have some pinks in here. I do think the formulas are pretty, and I've had a good time playing with it. But when I look at it, I go, oh yeah, I like that one. You know what I mean? Like, it's not sparking more intense feelings. So that's why I have this one at the top of this, because I don't really have a ton of critiques on it. Like, I think all the formulas are nice, and I've really loved the looks I've gotten with it. It's just not, I don't know. We're just not clicking, you know? This next category I have split into 2 sections because the stack is too big. This is where a bulk of the palettes are sitting. So, and normally I like to mention what palettes are new. I don't think Rocha was new. Well, good news for us. None of those palettes I just talked about were new for November or December. As we go along, I will mention if a palette is new, just because I like to do that so you can see where the new palettes kind of stack up against palettes that I've had for at least more than the last 2 months. So next up, we have the Life's a Drag Facelift palette from Lunar Beauty. So we are in the really light category now. I should have said that. I used this I used to love this palette. I used to love it. It was my go-to palette for a neutral look on this side. I should say the original Life's a Drag, and then I got the facelift version. Anyways, so I do really like this palette. The issue is that I reached for it recently, and I had quite a bit of creasing in the outer corner with the mattes. So I'm a little bit concerned that we are moving into a time where this palette's not performing as well as it had previously. We'll see. It also might have been my primer, because I've run out of my Smashbox primer, so I've been using my Melt. Although, like, I mean, I feel like we look pretty good right now. But anyways, I want to play with this one again to see if, like, the formula is deteriorating. But yeah, so that's why it's got bumped from the love category where historically it's been. Right now it's in the really light category. Next up, we have the Wash Way black palette. There's a name for these and I don't remember what it is. This palette I was gifted by Sea Beauty Mall, and it is new. It's the first new palette that we're talking about. I've used it once and I did like it. Similar to the Life's a Drag palette, I had some creasing with my mattes in the outer corner. Again, could be a primer issue or an application issue. I'm not really sure. I gotta use this one more. I've only used it the one time, but I really love the color story, love the packaging, so that's why it's in the really like category. We're kind of balancing it out. Next up, we have the Melt Cosmetics and Universal Monsters collab. This is the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein palette, and I do really like this palette. I really like the shades individually. These two I think pair really nicely together. The rest of this color story doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So when I've used this palette, I've pulled it in to supplement other palettes, or like to use like this particular shade or to mix it with some other palettes. But like on its own, I struggle to use it on its own. So that's where I've landed. Unless I'm just doing like a quick and easy neutral look, in which case these two shades at the bottom do work for that. Next, in the really light category, we have the Melt and Bailey Sarian collab, the Fatally Yours 2 palette. I do really like this palette. I debated putting it in the love category. I kept it here because while I do enjoy it, I think the formulas are great, both mattes and shimmers, and I really loved actually all of the looks that I did with this palette. I feel like when I want to come back to use this, I'm just going to do the same looks that I already did with it. I don't know that I'm super inspired to do a bunch of different kinds of things with it, which, to be fair, it's only 8 shades. So that's honestly pretty consistently my beef with less than 10 pan palettes, and why I don't usually like them all that much. Is that exact reason. I feel like it's kind of hard to continue to be creative with them. Oh, and Fatally Yours too was new for the month of, I believe, November. Yes. And then the Hua Shui was new for December. Okay, let's keep going. Next up, we have the Melt Cosmetics collab with Nightmare Before Christmas. This is the Christmas Town palette. I do think this palette is really pretty. I did update this shimmer here into a shimmer that I liked a little bit better than what was originally in here. I do like this palette. I think it's pretty. I think it's fun. I think it's fun for, you know, Christmas time, Halloween time. I think it's just a good time overall. It's just, I like palettes in this ranking better than this one. That's really it. I don't really have any issues with this or complaints with this. It's just, I like other stuff better. When you do these rankings, you have to always pretty much like something better, unless it's the #1 palette. All right, next up we have the Odin's Eye Christmas Eve palette. I really love using this palette for Christmas Eve. I think it's a fun tradition that I've created for myself, and I'm scared for when this formula really goes downhill because I don't know what I'll do, but I really enjoy using this palette. I think it's fun. It's a color story that I do struggle with a little bit. Like, I feel like I could see a blue look. You can kind of do, like, I can see monochromatic looks, but kind of pairing the different colors, I'm a little bit like, what do I do with that, you know? So, yeah, so that's why this one's here, but I do really love it, and I think it's really pretty. I said really love it, but we're in the really like category. Oops, maybe that one was ranked wrong. Next up, we have the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette. This was new for the month of November. This is a boring, basic palette, but I really like it. I do. I think it's fun. I feel like it's this shimmer shade didn't hit quite the same as these three. This is like more of your traditional shimmer, like metallic shade here. These are like sparkly wet toppers. This I feel like is supposed to be a sparkly wet topper, but it really does nothing. So I didn't love that. But I really like the finish of the mattes. I think it's a really easy palette to use. I think if you want to do 2 and done or really easy, quick looks, I really like this. I think it's great. Next up, we have the Viseart Ceraneuse Étendue palette. I really like, borderline love this palette. I think this palette is so, so pretty. The looks that you can get with this are just very polished while still having a little bit of that fun duochrome to them, but they still just look polished is, I guess, the best way. Like, just put together, effortless. Like, it's just, I really like Viseart shadows for those exact reasons that I just said. I know I never rank them higher because I feel like I don't feel as creative with them because they don't tend to do super colorful color stories, but I really like their formula. Rounding out the really like category, this is the second half of the stack, we have the Lunar Beauty Day and Night palette. I do kind of wish that they also made it magnetic this way. Like, I think that would have been fun, but whatever. So here's the day side. Another very neutral, very basic color story. This is the lighter side, and then here is the darker side, which is the night side. I think when you look at them, you can kind of say like, oh, those are the exact same. They're really not. I think Manny posted a video of this. The dark side is definitely darker. I think because of the dark packaging, they look more similar in tone than they actually are, but this definitely goes deeper. I would not be able to use the night side as a standalone. Like, I would need this in my crease. So this is mid-tone to deep for me personally. This was new for the month of December. I got this, I think Lunar Beauty was running like a really good Black Friday sale, so I picked this and some other lipsticks and stuff up. I really like it. I think it's fun, it's pretty, it's easy to use. I could see why they did do the magnetics. Why am I turned? I could see why they did the magnets this way because it would make it really easy to travel with, so I do like it. And I think the formula is really nice. I feel like it's got a great matte and shimmer formula, so it definitely gives me Nude Prism vibes when I first used Nude Prism, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing neutral palette I've ever used. Those are the vibes. I get similar vibes when I use this one. All right. Is it the most amazing yet? No, because I've only used it twice, but there we go. Okay. Next up, we have the Narimi Amber palette. Right? Amber? Yes. This palette is so pretty. I love the shimmer here. I have not used the shimmer yet. I haven't used a couple of the shades in here yet, but the shimmer is so wet, so sparkly looking. absolutely gorgeous. So I really, really like this one. Another borderline love. Gotta use it more. Next up, we have the Shall We Makeup Somber Garden palette. This palette is absolutely gorgeous and stunning, and I think the formulas are really nice. It is definitely darker shimmers, which I tend to prefer a light shimmer, so I do struggle with using this palette on its own. I almost always want to reach in and pull in a lighter shimmer to pair with it, just because I don't tend to do like super dark smoky looks. As you can see, I like a very light shimmer on the eye, so it's not quite the perfect color story for me, but I do think the palette packaging is gorgeous, the formulas are gorgeous, and I can appreciate all that without it being the perfect palette, like standalone palette for me. Next up, we have the Adept Cosmetics V Vet palette. I was gifted this palette in PR, and it is new for the month of November. This is what the inside of the palette looks like. It definitely is a color story that I think when you initially look at it, you're like, that's all over the place. Like, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. But then as you play with it, I feel like it's easier to figure out and use. You have a very light and a very dark matte, so you can kind of build your whatever gradient you want with the mattes over here. And then all these shimmers basically work with these mattes. Like, they all have flips and sparkles and things to them that they're just going to work with whatever you put them with. So I do think that's really nice. Plus, I think Adept has my favorite shimmer formula at this point. Like, I love it. Next up, we have the Ellie Star and Brittany Huffman collab. This is actually one of the palettes I have on my eyes today. I used, I will show you. This is the Best Mattes palette, by the way. I used the neutrals right here, like the brown neutrals right here in my crease. I really like this palette. I just kind of forget to grab it, and I definitely think it's a perfect palette for me to pull for BYOPs and things like that, because it has a ton of mattes and a ton of options, and it's magnetic, so I just kind of forget about it, but I shouldn't, you know? Last up for the really light category is the Nomad Cosmetics Fuji 5 Lakes palette. When I look at this palette, I'm like, okay, you've got a red look, a blue look, or a yellow look. But when you dive in deeper, you have a red plus yellow, aka orange look, a red plus blue, aka purple look, a blue plus yellow, aka green look. And so you can, because these are primary colors, you can make whatever colors you want, and that just opens up so much possibility with this palette. It's just when I look at it, when I'm trying to decide to do my makeup, I don't see that with my eyeballs upon initial look. But if I just keep that in mind, I really, really almost love this one. This is the top palette of this category. I think if I play around with it more and continue to do those looks that are not red, yellow, or blue, but are some of those more in-between color, secondary colors, I think I'll love it even more. I am turned sideways again. Next up, we have the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 3. This is the first Lightwork palette I ever tried. I have pan in this shade. It's a little baby pan, and I have a very noticeable pan in this shade. These are the highlight shades in the middle. And before I got Blend Bunny Noctilucent, this was like my jam for highlight. Anyways, I really like this palette. I still think it holds up. I still think it performs great. I just said really like, should this have gone down a category? Possibly. That's what I try when I'm ranking these now with these categories. I open it and I'm like, I really like this palette. Oh, I love this one, you know, and then I'm ranking it based on that. So I don't know. Anyways, I can't be trusted. There are cream shadows that I feel like crease if you put them in a spot where it creases, but I've seen a lot of folks, like Polaris in particular, they put it like above their eye and it creates such a cool effect without creasing. So I like that. So I do love, I should have put it in the other category. I do really like that one. Okay. Next up, we have the Natasha Denona Glam palette. I love this palette. I do. I love it. I think it is a classic, easy to use, you're just gonna look good kind of eye look. Are these shimmers outdated with what kind of shimmer formulas we're being given and we're seeing now? Yes. But I do think these shimmers still look really nice on the lid. I think they're very soft. They don't enhance texture. And sometimes I don't want a super sparkly shimmer. So I kind of like having this kind of a shimmer in my collection. So I do still love this one. I feel like I've seen people talk about it lately where they're like, these shimmers are, I'm over these shimmers, but I still really love them. Next up, we have the Odin's Eye Merry Christmas palette. I love this. And what's funny is I hate red and green. Like, I hate a red and green color combo. It's my least favorite color combo. I do not like it at all. I'm actually going to, I've like decided I'm gonna decorate with like Christmas decorations next year. I'm gonna have it be like red, green, pink, and like a teal blue. Like, I want it to be more colorful because just red and green together, I don't know what it is. I hate it. I actually hate it. But anyways, this palette does exactly what I would like, right? You got a pink in here, you got a gold, you got an orange, you got some browns. Like, it's not just red and green. It gives me a little bit extra. And then I can pair red and green together without feeling like it's just red and green. So I do like this I do really love this palette. I think it's great. I think it's fun. I use it every year at Christmas, similar to the Christmas Eve. I would like to use these, you know, more than just 2 days out of the year, but we'll talk about that later. Next up, we have the Frozen Kiss palette from Gourmand Girls. I just got this. This is the newest palette in my collection. I just got it for Christmas from my mom. I have used it 4 times and finished my review on it. I'm going to post a like full review video specifically with this and showing the looks and giving my thoughts and details. Overall, I love this palette. I'm having a great time with it. I don't want to spoil that video if I remember to film it, but I do love this, and I've been really enjoying playing with it. So there we go. Next up, we have the BellaBeauteBar and Brittany Huffman collab. This was their original collab. I actually decluttered this palette like a year or 2 ago, and I've had it in my memory box because I loved it so much. I was like, I'm not using it, so I need to part ways with it, but I can't because I love this color story so much. Anyways, I used it today. I did use the shade Reishi and Vibrations. Reishi is in the crease with those cool tone mattes, and then Vibrations is the highlight that you see on my cheek and also in the inner corner. I think this color story is like a neon acid trip rainbow, and I love it. I think it's amazing, incredible. I want to try and do a look exclusively with this palette to see how the mattes hold up, because I feel like that's why I wasn't using it before. I did use one matte today and it worked fine, so, but I paired it with like other mattes, so we'll see if that one can stay. Next up, we have the Adept Cyborg Choir, which, okay, I know some people are like, you love that palette, why would you get rid of it? I can love something and recognize that its time to be used has passed. You know what I mean? So, and obviously if I use it again and the mattes don't perform well, it moved down in my ranking similar to the Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag one. Anyways, Adept Cosmetics Cyborg Choir. I sang the praises of this palette multiple times. I feel like if you watch all of my monthly ranking videos, there's certain palettes that you know I've used a lot because they're in almost every ranking video. Like, I talk about them almost every single video. So I really love this palette. I think it's beautiful. I love the shimmers in here. I don't use this as a standalone palette. I tend to use it more as a companion, but it just elevates any and all looks. So that's why I have it here, because when I look at it, I go, I love it. Next up, we have the Gourmand Girls Silent Night palette. This was the palette that they did last year for holiday, and by last year, I mean 2023. I love this palette. I do. I love and adore it. I think it has some gorgeous shimmers in here, and it is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. Do I use it enough to support that claim? No, I don't. I need to use it more, but I really do love this one. I think it's so pretty. I think it's such a gorgeous color story, and I'm a huge fan of it. Next up, the next 3, I was debating putting in the Holy Grails. I don't know if they've quite reached Holy Grail status yet, but I really, 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 really love them. We have the Sigma Beauty Little Mermaid palette. I love this so much, which is shocking because I've decluttered every other Sigma Beauty palette that I've ever had because I've been like, yeah, it's fine, you know, it's nice. I think the mattes in here are incredible. I think the shimmers in here are incredible. I think the overall color story is incredible. Like, this is a sleeper hit as far as I'm concerned. This is amazing. I love it so much. Okay, next, Icy Nude Huda Beauty. This was new for the month of November. I love this. I do. When you look at it, you're like, oh, cool tone neutrals. It's like very one note. No, it's not. You can go warm, you can go pink, you can go icy, gray, brown, taupey. Like, there is variety in this, and I love that. It's absolutely stunning. This shade up here, Iced Out, so gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It's so good. I even used the glitter shade. Did it hurt a little bit to clean off? Yeah, it's gritty. It's a gritty glitter, but it is pretty if you just want to like tap it on the lid. So I do like it, but the shade, I mean. Overall, love the palette though. I think this is amazing, and I'm gonna be really sad if they do actually get rid of these palettes because I tend to really like them or love them in the case of this one and Mercury Retrograde. Mercury Retrograde is a holy grail favorite of mine. This one would be my next most liked of the large palettes for sure. Okay, last up for the love category, Blend Bunny, Listen Cosmetics, Lens Makeup looks. I am keeping these together because I just feel like that's the overall vision, you know? But obviously the eyeshadow palette is the top purple part and the eyeliner is the bottom. We're just going to talk about the eyeshadow palette for a second. But I think this palette is really cute. I would love to see Blend Bunny do more of these more curated color stories. I think it's very easy to use, very intuitive for me to like come up with looks, just because all the colors sort of work together. And if you watch Lynn's makeup look, every look she's done with using her palette is amazing, stunning, gorgeous, all the things. So those are all the palettes that I love. Lynn's makeup looks was also new for the month of November. So quite a few of my recent purchases have ranked pretty high. Also with the new like ranking setup, I feel like I'm a little bit better at keeping Holy Grail favorites, like true Holy Grail favorites, which to me are palettes that I would be devastated if anything happened to them. And I don't feel like I can necessarily replicate them easy in my collection, or if I could, it would take too many, like, they're just perfect the way that they are. That is ironic that I just said that because this is the Melt Cosmetics Rust palette, but I updated it. I updated the shimmers. So now it's perfect the way that it is for me because I updated the shimmers to be perfect for me. This is a very warm toned neutral palette and I love it. I love this Erode shade right here. This like 70s mustard color. Oh, it's beautiful. I absolutely adore this palette. Just changing the shimmers made that palette just perfect for me. Next up, we have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics and Robert Welsh collab. This is the Divination palette. I think, like, if I wanted to declutter a lot of my collection and just, like, be a neutral girly, I would still keep this because I feel like you can do neutral looks, but it's also perfect for me. Like the shades of green, blue, and purple in here, and then also the like yellow orange. Like those are the kind of colors I want if I wanted to do a pop of color. Like I was even looking at the eye look I did today, and I was like, I think I could get something very similar using this palette. Like I think I could accomplish a look that's very similar to the one that I have. Even though there's not necessarily duochromes like there are on my lid, I feel like I could accomplish something similar. So I really love that one. I think it's amazing, and I think it's very underrated. Anyways, next up we have the Narimi Ashes palette. This is another one that I feel like I talk about a lot, but this is a cool tone palette that's interesting, right? These are cool tone neutrals, but they are cool, you know? Like they are like this interesting sort of like khaki and like burgundy shade, and then you have this slate gray over here. Like it's just unique, and I feel like that's what I want in my collection, is something that when I use it, I'm like, oh, this is unique, this is different, this is fun. That's what I'm looking for in a Holy Grail favorite. Now, it is only 8 shades, so not that much variety in the looks, but do I have anything like this in my collection? No, I don't. So it's a Holy Grail favorite for me. Next up, I have the Melt Cosmetics Brunette palette. This is another one that I updated, the shimmers. Prior to updating the shimmers though, I still had this palette pretty high up because the mattes in here, the neutral mattes in here are perfect for my skin tone. Like they are my perfect neutral mattes. So this will always be a Holy Grail favorite for me unless I get rid of the mattes. But I did update the shimmers to works slightly better for me, but this palette still would have been here if we're being honest. And I don't know that I changed the shimmers all that much. Bourbon might be lighter, but I feel like Musk and Stout I kept somewhat true. This might be a little bit more pinky, but I feel like I tried to keep it slightly true to the color story, just like an upgraded formula. But anyways, I love this palette. Does it devastate me every time I use it that I like ripped this when I first got it? Yes, but here we are. Next up, we have the Il Makiage and Kathleen Lights collab. This is the Disco Fox palette. I always feel bad talking about this because it's not available anymore. I love this palette. I think the shimmers in here are amazing. This palette plus the Melt Brunette palette, if I want a perfect neutral look for myself, I combine these two. They are it for me. Like, I love these. If I could only have 2 neutral palettes in my collection, it'd be these two right here. Next up, and this is last, actually, this is the first place palette. This is the BellaBeauteBar Secret Garden palette. I love this palette so much. I love this palette so much. It's so pretty. So, so pretty. The shades of pink, the greens, the like minty, teal, the neutrals, like everything is perfect. Everything works together so well. I think it's amazing. Some of these shades are pretty chunky for shimmers, which I know is not everybody's jam. I still like them. This is really the only shade that I felt like was hard to use with a brush. The other shades I was able to get it on my brush with like a little effort. This one I'm like, I just got to use my finger for that one because it's very chunky, very flaky, similar to what I talked about with the Exotic Sheet palette from Narimi. But overall, I don't care. I will do what it takes to make this work because I love this overall color story. I think it's gorgeous, stunning, beautiful, all the things. It's my favorite. So that was everything that I used in the months of November and December. Let me tell you what my most used palettes were because I feel like sometimes people like to know that. Okay, I have 2 palettes tied for most used. They are the Ethereal Eyes Moonlight and the Frozen Kiss Ethereal Eyes Moonlight from Makeup by Mario and Frozen Kiss by Gourmand Girls. I used both of those palettes 4 times over November and December. So those are going to be my most used. Every other palette, there was actually quite a few in here that I used 3 times over those 2 months, and some palettes that I only used once. So that's how that split out. I did end up combining a lot of palettes. Like today I have 3 different palettes on my eyes. I have the 2 that I mentioned, the BellaBeauteBar Brittany Huffman Ellie Star collab, Best Mattes, the BellaBeauteBar Brittany Huffman like initial collab, and then I also have Brittany Huffman's Midwinter Dream palette that she did with Ensley Rain. Like I said, I didn't rank that, but that's what I have on my eyes. So like there was quite a few days where I used 2, possibly 3 eyeshadow palettes to get a look. And to me, that's when I enjoy doing my makeup the most. That's when I have my most fun, is when I'm dipping across multiple palettes. I know a lot of people don't like that, so I try not to do that if I'm posting content or doing reviews and stuff. But when I'm just doing my makeup for fun, I love mixing multiple palettes. But let me know what you think of all of these palettes in the comments down below. I hope this video was fun. Thanks for joining. See you next time. Bye.